Hey there, and thanks so much for joining us for another great edition of Port City Blue Talk. I'm Brandon Shope, and a big topic of interest here recently is crime stats for Wilmington. Wilmington Police recently releasing their 2021 crime stats at a meeting for Wilmington City Council. Chief Donnie Williams recently presented to Council about those numbers, and here to break it all down for us, what are the highs, what are the lows, what are the biggest takeaways? We've got Mr. Barry Coburn from WPD who sat down with us recently, and here's that interview. And joining me right now is Mr. Barry Coburn. He is the Senior Data Analyst here at the Wilmington Police Department. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, great.
Yes, good to see you as always.
Good to see you too.
Yes, sir.
Looking well and chic there.
Yes, thank you. You too. So,
well, thank you.
Yes, sir. So tell me, sir, a little bit about, I know, it's been kind of the hot topic, the big topic here in Wilmington lately. Crime numbers are down when it comes to violent crime.
Well, what we have seen is really a 10-year record. I mean, we haven't had this level of violent crime since really about 2009. It was about a 17% decrease. We had a nice reduction in murder and robbery. And I think aggravated assaults was also a new record for that time period. So we're seeing 3 out of the 4 that were remarkably lower.
Wow. So when it comes to what is attributed to that, what are you hearing?
Well, a lot of it is some of the new technology we put in place, some of the policies of the department, a lot of hard work from the men and women in blue, a lot of the detectives working overtime and that kind of thing, trying to catch the individuals that are involved, putting them in jail and breaking that cycle. But some of it also is just the nature of not being under COVID and also having more of a community approach that we've taken as a department. And some of the projects that we see in the future that may come into play, some of what the city and the county are working on together is going to hopefully pay further dividends.
Really? Okay. Well, that's excellent news. I mean, for those out there who did see that, some of the numbers when it comes to shoplifting and things like that in the downtown area, some of those numbers I saw went up just a little bit. What is that?
They went up significantly, but if we had completely covered all the businesses in Wilmington with police presence, that number would have still gone up because under COVID, all the businesses were shut down. So just by reopening the business, shoplifting is going to come up artificially. What I like to term that as is the COVID bounce. You're bouncing off of a bottom when it comes to that statistics. It's almost an outlier. So what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll look at 3 or 4 years prior to COVID and see where we were. The increase was there, but when you look at it in those terms and try to normalize it over that 3-year period, it's not so bad.
Okay, well that's good to hear. I mean, so that makes sense. I mean, so there's a reason behind it. It's not just.
And statistics are kind of a gauge of the community's health. They're also a kind of a gauge of human life. So as life cycles, the numbers change, and as community gets healthier and more involvement from community leaders and everybody starts working together, the community gets healthier, crime stats go down, everything starts working together.
Awesome. All right, and I know our officers out there on the streets working very hard day in and day out, 24/7, around the clock. Yep. How many calls did they respond to last year?
Well, rounding it off, they handle about 160,000. That's including calls from citizens, the ones that they initiate, the self-initiated, and the ones that are administrative in nature, the ones that they have to follow up on, going back and doing supplements and those kinds of things, handling phone calls and all that stuff. So they work really hard. 160,000 calls for a city this size is pretty good.
160,000, that's a lot. I mean, and that also goes into play, with our officers are very proactive. They're out there, they're preventing crime, they're building community relationships rather, and relations really, because when it comes to our community engagement unit, I mean, they're out there, I know, firsthand from being out with them many times, we did a behind the badge with them, Ebony and Lynn, out there interacting with the public, giving out snow cones and, popcorn and showing up at community events and things like that, building those relationships that are so critical, so key. And then when it comes to our officers who are out there maybe, writing citations, throughout the day, or maybe they're enforcing the law, in terms of responding to you know, more violent offenses and things like that. I mean, they're also taking a very proactive approach, right?
Right, and I think the thing you have to keep in mind, Chief Williams is very smart to get ahead of a lot of things when it came to the community relations side. Community relations pay dividends later on down the road when things start to happen in the ebb and flow of law enforcement, when you have an event that might be a little problematic or it gets a lot of publicity. You can draw on those community contacts and those good community relations to help get you through those tough times. So I think Chief Williams has done an excellent job in focusing on that. The other thing I think that community relations help you build is resources in the community that you don't see. We have the text-to-tip phone lines and those things where the community trusts us. They'll call us and give us information and tips, which allows us to be a better police department and catch the people that are doing these crimes and put them in jail where they belong.
Okay, well, wonderful. Now, Barry, I know we talked about a lot here. You know, the crime stats obviously being the biggest takeaway for me was just seeing, you know, we're seeing the lowest violent crime since 2009, like we mentioned. I mean, that's very important. You know, just because, like we mentioned, it shows the proactiveness of our officers. It shows the technology that you guys have implemented. It shows the day-to-day work that's going on behind the scenes that sometimes the public doesn't get the chance to see. Is there anything else, any other big takeaway from these numbers that you would like to share?
Well, keep in mind that numbers change and they tend to trend one way or the other. They sometimes go up, but they trend in a given direction. It's like the stock market. If you look at the stock market over a 50-year period, you don't really see the dips because it's just the dips are gradually going up and up and up as it trends upward. Well, crime stats for Wilmington have been doing the same thing. From way back in 98, 2002, and 2009, we've had these tiny spikes in between, but the overall trend of our stats is getting so much lower. We are leveling off to a point where in a few years we're going to have a level of crime that we're just going to have to accept. Because as we grow as a city, we're going to be 130,000, then 140,000, then 150,000. Well, as you grow, you're going to have a certain level of crime. Now, we can attack that in many different ways using our technology and our community relations, those kinds of things. But as the city grows, there is going to be an increase in crime at some point in the future. How that is handled and how that's digested from the public and how we disseminate that out as a topic is the trend is always trending lower. And we're seeing a less rate per 1,000 or per 100,000 of our population. That's the key. As that thing gets normalized, you can take a number and you can make it do anything you want. You have to put it in context and you have to normalize it.
Fantastic. Well, Barry, as always good to see you, sir. Always good to talk to you. I appreciate you.
Always good to be here, man.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, you take care and be safe out there, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Take it easy.
Take care.
Yes, sir.